Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
We've decided to add an extra little live session for everybody. Um, we are all readers. So you have myself, Melissa, we have Alexa, and you probably recognize Alexa from some of our podcast episodes. And then you'll have Lori. Lori is one of our regular employees and readers of the store as well. And then if you're ever in on the weekends, and maybe more so coming up for the summer, Violet. Violet is one of our website gurus, and you may recognize Holly from some of our podcasts for some of our Dee Dee episodes. But we wanted to come together tonight for everybody in regards to some newer and maybe old favorites of witchy books that have been out, and let you know what we think of them, since we are practitioners of sorts across the board. And we thought you might like to know what we think of these new books. I'll start first. One of the first ones, and kind of newer, it's been out for a little while, is The Witch's Book of Spellcraft by Mankey, Cavelli, Lynn, and Mankey, Ari Mankey again. This is Llewellyn. This is a pretty in-depth book. It's kind of for your basics, but what I found interesting in here, it does cover the threefold law, and a lot of people like to equate that into some sort of karma. And the original part of the threefold law had nothing to do with karma, because karma is not a witchcraft trait that is Buddhist and Hinduism. Threefold kind of meant pretty much pay it forward. If you had a good act done to you, you do 3 good acts out. So I think that's a lot of misconception that a lot of people have not noticed, and this book is going to explain it to you. But there's a lot of interesting things in here. They cover some baneful magic, curses, and one thing I thought might be interesting, there's been an uptick in interest in sigil working. They do a pretty good job covering sigil working using not only the alphabetical wheel in a traditional clockwise and counterclockwise, depending on the type of sigil that you want to work and the intention that you might have, but also how to create your own, like what you'll find in Laura Zakharov's book. We got Alexa popping in and out when you go. Come back, friend. And they did a pretty good job covering color correspondence, how to use them, how to work with them. Which one of the other books that I'm going to talk about a little later, the Ozark Mountain spell book, because you know me, I love spell books. I love collecting grimoires. And there were a couple of colors not even colored in here, or covered, I should say. The colors weren't covered in here. This one did a pretty good job covering all of them for anybody who is new, not sure what the different colors mean. Some of them are a little different than how I learned how I use them, but they have that little caveat that says, if it doesn't resonate for you, do what you want, use it how you want. And what I found fun, they cover certain things in your kitchen that you may not have thought to use, like banana.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, what to do with those annoying apple seeds if you're one of those people that, because like when I'm cutting up an apple, I hate it when I cut them in half. But just little things that I didn't think of. Why didn't I think of how to use some of that? And a good explanation of some of your more common oils, your Van oil, your anointing oil, or your blockbuster oil, your black cat oil, that a lot of new people may not know what to do with. But it's a pretty good starter book, has a really nice index. They index it out first by like what your attention might be, and then also by what the tool is. So if you had a certain tool, what does that represent? How to use it? And then you can go back the other way if you needed. But, and then it's broken down into your herbs, your colors, all those other references. So it's a pretty good book for beginners. If you're somebody that's been in the game a little while, you might find this kind of like, there might be a couple things in here that you're like, oh, that's fun. But you're like, I knew that. But still a pretty good resource. It's pretty thick. So it's got some information in there. I think the sigil wheel might be more kind of the takeaway for a lot of people. But again, The Witch's Book of Spellcraft by Jason Mankey, Matt Cavalli, Amanda Lynn, and Ari Mankey by Llewellyn.
How much is that running?
It is running $24.95. Trade paperback, did not come out in a hardback, just a trade. So it's a pretty thick book. So if you're starting your collection of spell books, it could be a good addition to start your basis with. But yeah, not horrible.
Nice. Welcome back, Alex.
Yeah.
No idea what happened or
She's gone. Bring her back.
Okay.
We'll go clockwise. So Violet and Holly, what books might you ladies have?
So I'm starting off with this book, Spell Work for Self-Care, 40 Spells to Soothe the Spirit. This is written by Lynn Pastunova and published under Clarkson Potter Publishes. I find that I love the artwork. Very warm tones, very it reminds me a lot of like some of those indie decks that come out once in a while. I will say it's a very woman-focused book, and it talks a lot about how women have a tendency to put a lot of time and energy into other people and are usually caretakers of their family. So it kind of talks in the first few pages about how, like, by taking care of yourself, you can kind of
that's cool.
Inspire other people to take care of themselves too. It talks in the introduction a lot about prep materials, timing the best times to put forth your spell work, casting circles, and then clean up after you're done with your practice. It also has, one thing I like about this book is it has a lot of spells from a variety of traditions. So it's not just Wiccan. You'll find different languages in here too. So it goes in an order: spell work basics, spells for protection, wellness, love, including like yourself and friendships, family relationships, and different spells for some couples too. It also talks about finances and your future, as well as sovereignty and kind of exploring your own personal power. And there's an appendix that kind of talks about days of week, different correspondences, colors, divination methods, and resources. I will say that the divination methods, I found it kind of like unrelated to this, but it is a cute little kind of, I don't know, brief overview. So I didn't hate it.
I loved the first part, what you opened to. I caught a glimpse, and it was like,
yes,
self-care is feminist. I love that.
Is feminist.
I'm gonna have to borrow this book from you, Violet.
I like the way that this book is laid out. For being such a small book, it really is so in depth. Like, for improving communication, it will give you the right timing, the different materials that you need, and it'll also give you things that you can say, and sigils, which I thought was cool because, again, sigils are becoming more popular. So,
Awesome.
Yeah, Lynn Pestunova. This one runs for $12.99, and honestly, I think it's a good little book if you're feeling like you need some self-care in your life.
Yeah.
Do we know if that's the same author that does the astrology self-care books?
I don't think so. You'd have to double check. I think the artwork might be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
It is possible, though. I will have to see.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks like I like.
It's a good book.
Yeah. That's cool because it's not just, it sort of like addresses everyone.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Very cool. So, I'm Holly. I'm Violet's mama. So I am reading a new one. It's called The Witch's Path, Advancing Your Craft at Every Level. It is by Thorn Mooney, and this one is a Llewellyn as well. It was just published, I think, fairly recently, maybe 21, because I think I just picked it up a few weeks ago. It's an interesting book. It kind of relates to what we've been talking about with Violet's as well, is that this is kind of a self-care book in regards to no matter where you are, at what level of the craft you are. So at first I wasn't sure, but it really sort of breaks it down into, I think the initial sort of piece of this is what exactly is witchcraft for you, and how do you define yourself as a witch, and sort of really kind of thinking about that, and maybe approaching it from a different angle than what you always thought about. And there's a lot of history, and just she talks about her own experience, and then I think I was, relating to a lot of what she was talking about. It goes through and is broken up into also being part of self-care, really creating your sacred space. So no matter where you are, like sometimes I get a little bit, I've been doing this for a while, so I kind of need to go through and like freshen things up, or and it talks a lot about how that it reflects your craft, and that it's so important to build a sacred space. It talks about cleansing your space, even no matter where you are on the path, to really take that time to just clean the way, and be attentive to that space, because it reflects and nourishes everything that you, all of the work that you are doing. All the one part two, there's a devotional. It really kind of, she talks a lot about like sort of defining and redefining our own definitions of both ourselves, our craft, what paths, what deities are we working with, that sort of thing. And then this part was interesting to me. There's a personal practice section where it's sort of like reigniting, if you're been in practice for a while, like what are you actually doing, reevaluating your meditation practice, your path working, definitely promoting journaling, and journaling, after divination, that sort of thing. And it talks about maintaining your shrine. And then what I love, because, I'm a nerd and a teacher, is that it really talks a lot about studying and reading and furthering your educate, like don't be like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And just sort of like, hey, put a little flame in where we all are, and being open to new experiences, new knowledge, and creating a personal practice that is nourishing to our souls on a regular basis. Because I think a lot of us sometimes, if we feel like, I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but sometimes work gets a little much and you start to feel like a hamster on a wheel, and then your practice kind of falls off. And I think this is just a wonderful reminder about finding your community, finding yourself, but also reaching out for learning experiences. So I really have been enjoying this book a lot. I think it's for every level, so that's really wonderful. It's $17.99, and again, The Witch's Path: Advancing Your Craft at Every Level by Thorn Mooney.
I like that. I like that it actually addresses like your sacred space.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed that. Like at first I wasn't like sure, because she was kind of like, talking about her experience, but then I started to sort of be like, yeah, I can relate to that. I understand where you're coming from, and I enjoyed it. I really did.
Like reigniting your passion. And
yeah, and
doing what you're doing.
Exactly. And that was really, really important for me, certainly.
Awesome.
I guess it would be me next, and then making sure we guys changed it up a little bit.
Did it awful.
Mine is completely different that I'm starting with. It is not anything of witchcraft. It is more of the metaphysical sense. So the book that I started off with is The Understanding Human Design, The New Science of Astrology, Discover Who You Really Are. So it does have some astrology in it, but it has a lot more than just astrology. So first off, it's by Karen Curry. Publishing company Air Font Publishing. The book is $21.95. So this book, really, you should go to the website, which did I write that down? I did not. It is in the book though. The human design, if you look it up on Google, just type in human design, I'm sure the website will pop up. You want to have your chart first. When I was reading this without the chart, I was just all like, huh? Um, if you have your chart, you kind of can be able to understand what they're talking about in the book itself, because it has your astrology chart. It also breaks down things like, I'll just kind of show you through. So there's several things that go on in this chart. I don't know if you guys can see that close or not. It has your astrology chart. It has numbers. It also has the Kabbalah involved, the I Ching, your chakras involved. So it's not just astrology. It's a little bit of everything that makes up you. They also made like their own version of like the Myers-Briggs to understand what you are as a person. So when I was doing mine, just to kind of, do a little, I found out the things when people ask if they know about the human design, what are you? Are you a generator? Are you a receptor? Are you this? Are you that? I'm a pure generator. So when you read this book, you kind of understand like that's your type. So how you learn and how you process things in this life, in this body. And then it just helps you to understand yourself, what you can, like your strengths and your weaknesses that you can work on. If anything, it also shows you what parts of the body are your strongest suits as well. I noticed most of mine happen to be my lower parts. So like my roots, my sacral and my solar plexus tend to be my stronger points. But like I said, it involves so many things. And then when you have this, you can literally go chapter by chapter and understand, okay, so this is my body graph. This is what this means. This is the, 9 different centers, which is the different chakras, and they're placed differently because it follows the Kabbalah. And then there's different lines in there that basically are connecting the dots, as I kind of say, like little channels, like they show little channels. They're either black or they're white. If they're black, that means they are they're connected. If they're white, they're not connected. And then it breaks it down even more. Yeah, it's just a lot. So if you're somebody that likes going down rabbit holes and wanting to study yourself a little bit more, this book is up your alley. I will say there are people that actually do this as readings. I know we're looking into seeing if we know somebody in the area to do these types of readings, and being able to understand yourself a little bit more, because this is a little bit newer. There's a couple of people that generated this together, I believe, in the early 1900s. Let's see. Spiritual teacher Ra Ruhu created this. So it's basically science and spirituality marrying together. But Karen Curie was the one that kind of like breaks everything up so you understand it a little bit more, because if you don't understand any of this stuff, you're not going to understand your chart and what you're about. But yeah, this is The Human Design by Karen Curie. If you want to know any more, feel free to come to the shop.
I got a couple of copies on purpose because I kept hearing people talk about this, especially like Brittany. So I'm like, oh, let me see what she's always talking about. And I brought it home and I'm like, oh, this is astrology. Nope. I'm like, Lori, this is for you.
Yeah, but so much more than just astrology. It just has like that's the thing. It just has your natal chart, but everything else off of that is so much more, like the whole Kabbalah, like them involving the Kabbalah into this, and where the Kabbalah meets with your body type, and like knowing where your body is the strongest and why you carry like maybe possibly weight, or why you always have issues with certain areas of the body. So it kind of like, it's like light bulb, okay, this makes sense. And then knowing like there's certain people that are here to be generators, like me being a generator, that's like a 30%. I'm not a rare person. I'm one of those people that give off that energy. I'm one to give out that energy to people, and there's others that take it. So I mean, there's a whole, it just breaks it down. If you really want to understand this, like I said, Google human design, do your chart. You really do have to know your birth date and time and place to be able to have this and follow it through that book.
Interesting. Might have to take another peek at
Okay.
As she rolls her eyes again.
astrology.
Oh, it's literally like a blip. That's all you need is like that, and then everything else like is connected together. It's like a small basis of astrology. Everything else is added in. I feel like that's more stronger than this astrology.
Nice. Okay, so the first one I would like to talk about tonight is called Of Blood and Bones. It is by Kate Fruhler, and for a mere $19, you could also take this one home. But I will warn you, this is one of those books that definitely walks up to the line of moral and ethical witchcraft, and then tap dances all over it and challenges you to think about it with her. The entire book is about the, I guess, grittier, and when I say darker side of magic, I don't mean like evil, but I do mean like this is a book for someone who's willing to get their hands dirty, metaphorically speaking and physically speaking. So for example, like one of the sections in the books that she does talk about, she makes something called death oil, and like the ingredients in your death oil are dead insect carcasses, animal bones, graveyard dirt or dirt from fallow ground on which nothing grows, ashes, dead plants, dead leaves, an object that was used to kill something. So this is kind of a book that if you are somebody who has done the mental and emotional work first to decide, how do you feel about hexes, curses, poppets? How do you feel about influencing types of magic versus receptive types of magic? That it's a book that could definitely benefit you, but the entire first half of the book, which I really appreciate what she does, is she makes you think about it. She takes the entire first chapter and challenges you to understand that this isn't child's play. This isn't just something that you should pick up and do if you're a beginner by any means. Like going back to like her death oil that she chooses to make, things like anointing candles that you can use in curses or banishes, blessing items that you would like to represent habits that you'd like to banish off of yourself, putting drops of oil in someone's shoes whose influence you want from your life. So I always hesitate to use the idea of good and bad, white and dark, white and black rather, because what this author manages to do is she manages to very unbiased, like there's no dispersions, there's no opinions on it. She talks you through, here are these parts of magic that exist in the world. And these are these parts of systems in the world that if you have the light, you have to have the dark, because that's just how the scales balance each other. She drives it within a sense of working with the dark moon rather than the full moon. I very much enjoyed the fact that she also took the time to explain that if you were going to collect certain objects, like I think I picked this up originally because she has a whole section on bones and skulls and throwing bones, and I love a good throwing bone. But she actually talks about the ethics of if you are someone who is going to be using these kinds of actual organic materials in your craft, you know, you are taking responsibility for those. You are responsible for knowing where are these objects coming from? Are they being ethically sourced? What it is you're using them for, because she understands the gravity of a lot of the more like intricate kind of magics. She does go into depth on like cursing and magical manipulations, but she immediately follows that up with is your sacrifice. Like, if this is something that you are willing to do, these are the things you must be willing to sacrifice. These are the things you must be willing to take on as part of this portion of magic. And I really liked her approach because she didn't, it was not like a good or bad thing. It wasn't her saying like, this is a bad part of magic, you shouldn't do this. This was her saying, here's a part of magic that eventually every practitioner has to sit down and ask themselves these questions. Are you somebody that will do manipulation magic? Are you somebody who, you know, will work with hexes, curses, banishings? And she kind of just talks you through, here's what that would look like for you if it was something that you wanted to incorporate into your craft. I was very much impressed with, again, how objective she was able to be. And it did make me think. It's one of those books that you take it chapter by chapter, because every chapter she's going to bring up interesting things in your life or things that you had kind of questioned before about whether or not you could and couldn't do. And it makes you sit down and think about it. Like this book took me a long time to get through, because I would have to stop every chapter or so and do some serious, like, meditative introspective work on, you know, okay, what does it truly mean if I'm going to use my own blood in a spell or a ritual? You know, what is it going to mean if I'm going to use, you know, actual animal bones in my throwing pieces? What are the implications of that? And I liked it because I've always been, Lori can attest, because the Scorpio in us always kind of gets excited about like anything dark and deviant. We're like, ooh, sign me up. But it was such a well done analytical look at what would be considered like the taboo sides of magic. And I definitely think it's something that practitioners, that if you were definitely not for just starting out, because there's a lot of heavy concepts in here, but for someone that's willing to like ready to like challenge themselves and really kind of think through and kind of do some of the learning that like Holly had talked about doing, like, it would definitely be a book worth getting. So Of Blood and Bones, working with the Shadow Magic and Dark of the Moon by Kate Fruhler. I'm super glad I got this book. I would love to have an entire hour discussion about stuff in this book, because it does cover a lot of those taboo topics that you should ask yourselves. You should have those conversations with yourself, and this helps facilitate those conversations with yourself without casting it in a good light or bad light or a yes or a no. It just here's what it is. So
there's so much taboo and scare, you know, around anything of that sort. People go running for the hills, and I'm like, why?
Like, it's part of life. Death is a part of life. This is just, it's, I don't know, like it spoke to that realist in me that kind of understands that, you know, yes, death can be this beautiful, magical thing, and it is a transition, but it is a gritty thing. It's a raw thing. It's something that leaves, you know, holes in you, and how to use those energies and how to actually, you know, channel that into something a little bit more worthwhile was super enlightening.
I peeked through it. I haven't read too much through it, but I might have to at some point, because you know me, I like going down those rabbit holes with the taboo and the scary stuff.
Yeah, makes you question, where can I get graveyard dirt?
Anywhere, as long as you don't get caught.
Right. The next book I was going to talk about, this is actually the second from this author, Brandon Weston, Ozark Mountain Spell Book. His first one was Ozark Mountain Magic. by Llewellyn. This one's 1999. It is Ozark folk, very hoodoo-esque, which is kind of right up my alley. I was a little disappointed there wasn't as many spells because I love collecting spells, even if it's just to be like, did you read this one? Did you see what it said? That's silly, huh? But it's still fun to read. He does a great job for beginners on, I mean, he even tells you, like, I'm going to break every spell down into the timing, when you need it, day of the week, blah, 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 blah. If you don't know how to do it, this is going to hold your hand and tell you how to do it. He even breaks down like the level of effectiveness if you're doing spell work for other people, like whether or not it's a piece of hair from them all the way scaled back to if you're just grabbing a brick from their house. Don't go trespassing, guys. Relating spell work into days of the week with the astrology man and a really nice chart for days of the week, what it means and what you can and can't do. I say can't very loosely because I am of the belief that if you need to do a working, you do the working regardless of what day of the week, month, what astrological sign is going on. Whether or not it's full moon, because as I say, the moon is always full. We're in the different position, not the moon.
Yeah.
What I found interesting, though, in the candle working and the color, he does not reference yellow at all, which I thought was very interesting. No yellow correspondence. And didn't really see a good reason why yellow was kind of not included. But he covers everything from like witches' ladders to things for mending, broken hearts, how to catch a fever in an egg. That was another one. We are so used to seeing like egg cleansings where you rub the egg over the body and you break it in the water, kind of like that South American tradition. No, you say an incantation over the egg with the Bible verse, you throw on it or blow on it 3 times, then you throw it in a body of moving water. Never have seen an egg cleansing described that way, but this is how they do it in the Ozark Mountains. So some fun little things in here. Very, very well done if you are kind of coming in the very beginning. You have an idea, but you're still kind of unsure what to do on some things, how to quite do it. I mean, it's really well broken down. I mean, you can't not know what to do. Don't be surprised with the Bible verses that are listed in here. That is a part of a lot of folk and hoodoo magic, and this is folk. So don't automatically toss it aside. If you're a recovering Catholic or Protestant or whatever, there's a lot of magic that can happen in that Christian book that can add to what you're doing. But it's pretty fun. But again, it breaks everything down really, really basic. But what I found too, for them, they don't use smudge. For them, their cleansing is red cedar. So that is what they see, red cedar and juniper. So fun little interesting things. If you're somebody that you're like, I am tired of burning sage, grab some cedar, red cedar or juniper or both. But yeah, fun little book to add to your collection. There's quite a few spells and just not as much. And because, I'm the one that has like that 5,000 spell book in one book too. So a lot more.
Contact the author in the back of that book, because I love a lot of the pagan and witchcraft books. They usually have a way to reach out to like the author or like the publishing.
He does. He's got ozarkhealing.com. He is a folk herbalist, a yarb, which is like herbal medicine doctor, and a doctor. So he teaches. He has his own whole like thing going on down in that area. But he's
ask what the hell he's got against the color yellow.
Right. Like, why? Why no yellow?
Why no yellow?
Fayetteville, Arkansas. And I'm like, oh, I used to live kind of close down there. But yeah, ozarkhealing.com if you wanted to ask him why there's no yellow. That was my takeaway. Why no yellow in your book?
No yellow? I really think you should send him an email.
I'd
Okay,
like
so
No.
Pierre, we get a lot of emails tomorrow. Why did you not use the color yellow?
Yeah.
because all witches love a good like table of correspondence. We love a good chart. That stuff, like that is the first thing in witchcraft I feel like everybody gets to.
Yellow,
Right? Like,
Because I mean, they reference like limes and lemons and other yellowy, greeny, you know, and I'm like, so they're familiar with yellow. I don't know if it was an
Primary color,
thing.
not
I
like
mean, like they'll never know. But yeah, no yellow.
It's kind of interesting, Melissa, what you said about the cleansing with like cedar, because the in the Celtic tradition as well, and I know that a lot of the people in that area and also in Appalachia with the folk magic are of those are descendants, Celtic descendants. So I that totally resonated with me.
Nerd.
I know I'm a nerd, but I cedar a lot as well. So that spoke to me.
You're like, ew, cedar. Okay, so my next book is The Witch of the Forest Guide to Earth Magic. This book is by Lindsay Squire, published by Leaping Hare Press. It is a British company. This author starts off her book. I mean, she just jumps right into it. She starts off with like things to know about me, where I'm coming from, what I want you to know. She is inspired by East Anglian. Tradition and Cornish tradition. Mm-hmm. So very specific. She just to know before you like go into this book, she talks about how important your energy is as a tool for your own personal growth. Kind of like with Alex's book, facing your light and dark, mm-hmm. and how to use both of those in your practice and to not shy away from one or the other, and how vital it is for you to kind of find your own practices and not always stick to like the rules, I guess. Mm-hmm. There are a few parts of this book: casting a circle and ritual basics. She goes into elements, seasons, Mother Earth magic, crystals, divination, empath care, which I thought was really interesting, and shadow work and energy balancing techniques. So this is a very broad book. I think that this is a very good book for beginners because it kind of touches a little bit of everything. And there's also different herbs that they talk about and it's just a very broad overview, but condensed into one smaller thing. There's some cool sections in here just to show you how broad it is. There's like water ritual baths for enhancing intuition, so kind of going into the self-care. There's also connecting with the energies of summer and different things that you can do with that, such as carrying fire crystals and harvesting herbs. She talks about turning your own seasons and energy and honoring your own life cycles. And again, this book has a lot of cool artwork too. I'm very drawn to books with a lot of artwork. She talks herb and spice grimoire. So very
there you go, Melissa.
Yeah, very grimoire-ish. And then also, and I thought this was a really cool part of this book, talking about caring for yourself as an empathetic person, as an empath, and how important it is to kind of relax and not always soak up other people's energy, and how to kind of cleanse yourself, protect yourself, check yourself before you want to do any of your work. Another really cool thing about this book is the cover. So the inside of the cover actually comes out and it becomes a rune, like a little rune thing, a little rune map, so that you can use as a board. So an actual tool within the book.
Oh, that's pretty nifty.
Yeah. Pretty. And secrets, like witches, we love that kind of stuff.
I know, it's like a secret within this book. So very
Be
cool.
like useful books, jars, boxes, rocks, sticks.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a lot of that kind of thing. And again, Lindsay Squire, The Witch of the Forest Guide to Earth Magic. This one goes for $14.99 in pounds, but we are not in England, so 20. Very good book, in my opinion. I have no complaints. So yeah,
I love that because I think it's so important, like especially like young, people just starting out. It's really important
Young
to
people.
understand. Yeah, like this one here, to understand like how to protect yourself and how to really, like being an empath. Sometimes, like especially if you are. Is generational, like you don't always quite know how to handle that when you get overwhelmed and that sort of thing. So I really love that. That's cool.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, very cool. So I am going to this book. Okay, I am so super excited about this book. This, for anyone out there that is into any sort of Celtic tradition, I think it really. Anyone that's interested in mythology, anyone who is interested in astral projection or like spirit work, guided meditations. Wow, is this ever your book? I am super excited about this. This is called Celtic Myth and Magic, Harness the Power of the Gods and Goddesses by Adaine McCoy. This is also a Llewellyn, and this is an amazing book. You can see how it's a nice thick book. I am of the Celtic tradition, and I also teach mythology, so I cannot tell you how well done this book is. This is not a surface, just nod to mythology. This is like the real deal for sure. So it goes through, and the sections, it really gives you, if you're not familiar or if you're just starting out, just learning about the Celts, their other worlds, their different, the Our Shea and different sections of the other world, the pantheon, the gods and goddesses. And then it takes you into sort of the wheels of the year, the Celtic wheel of the year, the turning of we're coming upon Lie the Soon. So that's part of it. Also, then there's a parallel with basically our life cycles in regards to the Celts, believe in cyclical time, and that basically to some degree it's there is not an ending or a beginning, and there's a certain immortality and a kind of we were talking earlier about not being afraid of death. Well, to some degree, that is one of the things that is so important, because the Celts looked at the world around them. They saw that the seasons after winter, spring always comes back. Life always comes back, and there's this cycle. And so this book kind of connects all of these ideas, all of these things. And then the part that really absolutely blew my mind was the part on path working. And this is something that was kind of new to me. I mean, I've done guided meditations, that sort of thing. We all have in the tradition. But this was new to me. I'm going to throw myself out there, for a very important birthday that I recently had. I bought myself a present, and that present was a handmade drum for this little Scottish lady who is the bomb. And she made me this drum, and we really connected, and she sent me a guided meditation and with the drum. And it was just like, I can't even explain to it. It was like coming home, and it was so, so amazing and so meaningful to me. And so when I've had this book and, I've flipped through, but then it's sort of like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to see this. This is really important work here. So the path work is really interesting because, again, it is that traveling into your inner world. Some call it astral projection, or different inner world journeying. It can be vision work. But here, in this part, it's really interesting. It says, pathworking, sometimes referred to as an advanced magical practice, is as old as the art of storytelling itself, an art highly prized by the Celts. Their itinerant storytellers, they were called the Shenaki, have, by using these ancient myths, helped transport many persons into the inner realms and back again without ever knowing such a transformation occurred. And that is definitely another motif of transformation. And so this book kind of takes you through, and it has these sections where it kind of prepares you to do several guided journeys using Cuchulainn is a major, over 9 waves. Cuchulainn is one of the main heroes in the Irish tradition, and then Queen Maeve, and then in the Arthurian tradition, Merlin. So there are 3 different sections, but in the beginning, it takes you through of how to sort of like begin the pathway, get your space set, and then it talks about putting your fears to rest if you've never done anything like that, like basically like talking you down off the ledge, like you're going to be, everything's cool, you're safe, but this is going to transform you. It's going to, you're going to learn about yourself and your practice. But there's an invocation, and basically it's almost like, you remember those books where you were like, you kind of make your own ending and that sort of thing. It reminds me kind of that, because for each one you would have either, and you could do this in a group. In fact, I would love to maybe at some later time, maybe we all kind of try this out together, hint hint, but but definitely, oh, look at the kitty. But anyway, but there's an invocation which it sort of can read it to the group, or you can read it to yourself. You could probably even tape it, but it's taking you through that breath work and sort of bringing you into this altered state to travel. And then you follow whichever of the Celtic traditions that you want to follow, but then you seamlessly then go back into there is basically a returning home, which I love that. That's really, really awesome. But basically, it's like feeling very light again. You step off the ground and find that you can fly. You fly back up the rainbow, and it takes you back home. And then it also guides you. And then after, it talks a lot about archetypes, about Jung, which is right up my alley as well. And then it talks about like taking this and what you learn, and then creating your own stories and your own meditations. And again, this could definitely be in a group of like-minded, spirit workers, which I think that's so exciting to me, especially if you're of the Celtic tradition. It's just marvelous. So I really am excited about this book. And then, of course, the rest of it, because there's such a huge resource book, but it talks, there's a really detailed pantheon of the Celtic gods and goddesses. There are there's a pronunciation guide, because I think that's part of, like even the sound of that when you are doing that sort of vision work is really important. And it also has in here, which I think is kind of amazing, it has songs. So if anyone out there is musical, there's actually sheet music in here. There's also recipes. So like there are you could have some Cornish pasty right while you are going on your journeying. Of course, a little bit of spirits for your spirit work as well. So I kind of love that. But again, this is one of the most thorough books on Celtic deities that I have ever seen. It is like both really, really in depth, but also really user friendly because of the way that it is, laid out. Right, exactly. It's really an awesome book. So if you are at all interested in Celtic work or myth, definitely check this out. This one was $27.99, but I say it's a steal because it is such an amazing book. It's called Celtic Myth and Magic, Harness the Power of the God and Goddesses, again by Adaine McCoy, who's been writing for a really long time. So highly, highly recommend.
It looks like a really thick book. How many pages is that bad boy?
I don't know, but it's amazeballs, and we need to try this. We're going to do some guided meditations because this is what happened.
This seems like
Oh, it's like 500 pages, but of pure awesomeness. And I'm not kidding. If you are a Celtic practitioner, it is pure awesomeness.
Even if you're not, why not?
Oh, it's amazing because I love the part about how, you know, once you do this this vision work, how you can totally, it's important to then be creative and mindful, and you take over, you write, which is another thing that I am so connected with. So it is a book of the old and empowerment in the new and going forward, and I love it. It's a wonderful, wonderful book.
awesome.
Cool deal.
Well,
You're next, Lori.
yeah, I know, and I feel like I'm the oddball out until the end. I have like a witchy book at the end, but I'm all like I'm out of the box with stuff to because I'm like, no, my mind needs like expanding and healing and all this jazz. So this book we got in was maybe like a couple weeks ago. Healing with the Akashic Records.
Cool.
So I don't know if anybody knows about the Akashic Records or not. The Akashic Records are if you think of like almost every movie, I kind of think of them in a different way, but everyone will see it in a different way when they tap into it. But everybody has an Akashic Record. This is basically what is your contract, what you signed up for when you decided you were made. Basically, it has a little bit of everything from all the lives you've lived, but really focusing purely with this one on this life. When you tap into this book by Linda Howe, sorry, I jumped. I'm like Linda Howe. Sounds True is the publishing company. It really helps you to navigate your way to getting into the Akashic Records. So how they break it down.
Oh
no! Somebody trying to call me, of course, right when I'm doing this. Breaking it down into two different things. Your fixed Akashic Records, and then your not fixed Akashic Records. Now, your fixed Akashic Records are what is going to happen inevitably. It's just it. That's the timeline that you picked, that you signed the contract when you came down here. The not so fixed is the stuff that you can manipulate and fix. So with that being said, it kind of gets broken into different parts in the book. So there's like part 1, part 2, part 3, and then it goes by chapters in each one of them. Actually, let me tell you, there's 4 parts. So with this book, it is something to take baby steps with. It is not something that you have to you're going to just jump right in. If you're not used to meditating, if you're not used to being calm and focused and everything, this is not the book for you yet. Got to wait a little bit. But if you're ready to heal and you're ready to focus on yourself and to, fix some things that need to be fixed, this book is up your alley. So one of the great things that I loved about this book is there's actually their process of doing it is through like a version of a prayer, of their prayer. When I was doing it, as you saw my cat popping in the video, my cat came running when I did it. Like whenever I do this type of meditation, I think he's just there to make sure I'm coming back, because Lori likes to leave and sometimes not come back into her body. So when there's an opening prayer and a closing prayer, which is awesome. I love that there's it's like, okay, make sure you close. Kind of like the Ouija. When you open it, you say hello, and then make sure you finish with goodbye. Same thing open it, figure out what your Akashic records are. It will look different to everybody. A lot of people say a lot of times they kind of look like filing cabinets, but where you're going to in your mind is different than everybody else's. So there's always going to be like a person specifically that is known as like, you've got, I'm sorry, I'm gonna, boop, boop, I wrote it down. Okay, so you have like your masters. The masters remain in a relationship with an individual from the point of the soul's inception and throughout time. So they're the masters of the Akashic records. Then there are like the lords of the Akashic records, and they are like a group of people that are entrusted with your records. So they are the ones that kind of are like your team that are entrusted with the records. And then you have your teachers, who are the ones that like show you the records and kind of help you figure out where it is you want to go and learn to, you know, heal. And then you have your loved ones. Believe it or not, loved ones that have passed on to the other side usually can show up during your session when you're doing this, to open your Akashic records and to go down that alleyway. But it breaks it down even more. Like I said, each section, like becoming aware of self-abandonment. Like if you ever were a person, which I will say, I felt like one of my love languages, which kind of ties, if anybody has ever talked about love languages, one of my love languages is quality time, because I always felt like I was abandoned. So that's something I need to heal from. So that would be something I would want to go and find in my Akashic records and try to heal. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's a lot of work. This is a book. If you want to do the dirty work, if you want to take your time, it's going to take, I don't know. It just depends on each person, I guess. This is the book I would suggest. But I love that, like I said, it breaks it down into chapters. They have a little prayer, an opening prayer, a closing prayer. They go into detail about what the Akashic records are. Okay, sorry, Kat. Kat likes to be in my space as I'm talking about this stuff. And just all like your different runes. They call them sacred wounds because those are things over time that really tore us, like kind of cut a void into us, so that we are going back and fixing that. But first thing, just even going off of this, I just got an Akashic Records reading from somebody that's in the shop. That would be Julie Clusta.
Yes.
So we're going to try and get her to do a Akashic Records class. But I love that this is tapping into that work and really helping, you know, with our guides, our ancestors and all that. They're helping us to heal and to, you know, ascend a little bit higher once we decide to kick the bucket. So again, Healing with the Akashic Records by Linda Howe. Sounds true, and this is $17.99.
Am I the only one that ever hears about any of these, like, you know, you're meeting your masters, you're meeting your teachers, that it's almost like you're having to answer to a very large cosmic board of directors?
Yeah, that's how it is. And that's how I even like saw it. It was like you're
like
at a round table with like all these people.
Conference room, okay, what are we doing?
Yep, and they all have a certain, like they show up at certain times that they're needed too. So that's what I thought was cool, is I got to actually see even more of them, because I only see like a blip. Got to see.
So the next one I want to talk about is called The Crooked Path. It's an introduction to traditional witchcraft. The author is Keldon. He is a mono name, like Madonna. I was originally drawn to this book. Both sides of my family, mother and father's side, are trace the roots back through West Virginia. I am hiding a lot of Appalachian white trash, and I'm doing it very well. But I still have a lot of roots to that Appalachian folk culture, and I wanted to explore what that connection to nature looks like without being cottagecore, so to speak. Like I wanted it to be more of like, you know, walking in a woods and stuff like that. But like, so the Crooked Path, what I liked about how Keldon approached this is it's not, he makes it a point to express the fact that you as a practitioner have to define this for yourself. That there is no set absolute, you know, end all be all definition of what witches do. I love the fact that he is a male identifying author. He does use he, him, but also identifies as a witch. I love stuff like that. But he talks about a lot more of the traditional kind of down home magic that you can get yourself into. He talks about like the actual tools that, you know, traditional witches would use, and it goes beyond like, you know, the cauldron and the broomstick. Like he talks about creating your own stang and like taking yourself on walks through the woods and asking, you know, whatever spirits are around in the woods to help you find one, to help you work with one. One of the things I loved that he did was wherever you were at, geographically speaking, he makes it a point for you to talk to your genus loci, to the land whites, to who or whatever geographically is around you. That's who you should be talking to. That's who you should be. If you have land, if you have property, if you are working in the woods, you owe kind of those higher powers that respect of knowing their names, of knowing, you know, whose house you're basically walking into and asking them, you know, to work with you. I also really enjoyed that he spent a good chunk of the book kind of breaking down the differences between Wicca and witchcraft, because I feel like he does a really good job of not being fully Wicca, not being fully like untraditional witchcraft, but he's very big on where can you find yourself in your own path. And the way he presents it is as you read through the book and as you go through the chapters, he has these wonderful little, almost like story that you're walking yourself through, where, you know, you're standing before a dirt path that stretches and winds far into the distance, you know, all around the walls around you, you know, abundant growing. Like he actually tells a story almost of you walking through your journey, of you walking through, and he kind of metaphorically talks you through walking through the woods and finding your tools and connecting with the witch mother and the witch father, which was a concept I had never heard of before. Talking about, you know, how to connect with the world that you're walking in, and then how to connect with the other worlds that are around you. And he does it by almost inviting you to kind of romanticize your journey a little bit. And, you know, envisioning yourself, metaphorically speaking, walking through the woods that is your life, and identifying, you know, the tools you're going to be using, the ancestors, the familiars, the fetches that you're going to be relying with. He also makes it a very large point in here to call back to a lot of the older folklore. He talks about, when he talks like the witch mother and the witch father, he talks about the witch father in some of the lore of like the Black Woodsman, and the fact that this, you know, the Black Woodsman, the Black man, you know, who oftentimes was called Tom, which I love that because it's such an Appalachian pool. Like he does kind of get into some of the more like, not dark side, but definitely the more like like you wouldn't really want to meet this, you know, deity or higher power or spirit by yourself. Maybe have somebody there who kind of knows them better. But I loved his approach to it. I liked the fact that he also made it a point to, if you were going to be somebody who wanted to run through the woods and, you know, pick herbs and mushrooms, he makes it a very large point to say, if you're going to do that, you have to be responsible for doing your homework and not eating something that could kill you.
True that.
Because that is super important, because there's a lot of earth-based, kind of more folkloric Appalachian magic that is very big on, you know, growing your own produce and, like, you know, harvesting things that naturally grow in the woods around you. But if you aren't smart enough to do the homework beforehand, you could definitely hurt yourself or someone else by giving them those things. One of the things he talks about that I absolutely love, because every once in a while you'll see them pop up in news stories when they're like renovating old houses in like some of the first like old New England settlements. It's witch bottles, the little bottles that they would like bury on their property. And he spends a wonderful good chunk of a page or two talking about the ins and outs and whether or not you should use your own urine in a witch bottle and what that actually means. Like he does a good job of inviting some of the gritty. So I would almost say, like, if you were somebody who was ready to kind of start dabbling into like, yes, I'd like to like maybe use my own urine or use my own hair, this is it. This is an excellent primer for how to start tapping into more of that primal part of yourself. Whereas like Blood and Blones is definitely more of a like, hey, you better have a couple years under your belt before you go play with this. But if you are somebody who wanted to kind of start out on more of a traditional path, in a sense of like basically walking your own path, this is definitely the book for you. Because every once in a while I do like to go through and reread like beginners books and, you know, introduction books, just to kind of see what the kind of research says. Because the books I read 15 years ago on the introduction to witchcraft and the ones that I'm reading now are wildly different. But it was a very pleasant, easy book to read. I loved that he also included exercises in his book. Like he actually included like breakdown exercises of, here are some things you could be doing. Here are rituals. He pulls from his own grimoire and offers recipes, you know, incense, foods, journaling opportunities. Like he breaks it down almost like in a workbook, fashion. And I've always been the type of learner that I drive really well with the workbook kind of fashion when I'm learning something. So it had just enough guidance for you to kind of start meeting other parts of yourself you weren't sure were fully there or fully developed, but without tying you down with specific, you know, definitions and realities. Like he makes it a point, like I got to the end of this book and I'm like, I couldn't tell you anything about what this author believes in personally, because he's not doing it to tell you, oh, here's the right way to do this. He's doing this to be like, well, here's how I found my path and here's how I did it. Here's some things you might discover along your way, but you're the one doing it. Good luck. And I loved it. It was $18. It was an awesome little read. So if you're somebody who is kind of tiptoeing towards that more traditional Appalachian, it definitely would be a book that would kind of speak to you on that level and be worth reading, because it was fun. It was definitely a fun, and it made me feel a little bit more connected to my own ancestors and my own, you know, people in my family history that came before me, that I could imagine, you know, they had to walk through woods because it was a big patch of undeveloped land, and that's just what they had to do because there wasn't a Walmart or a store or a Goddess Elite to go get, you know, resources from. They had to go out and collect those things on their own. So The Crooked Path by Keldon, his introduction to what he proposes is traditional witchcraft. It's an awesome read. Definitely an awesome read for anybody that's interested in witchcraft, but kind of also enjoys getting, you know, having dirt under their fingernails, so to speak. Likes to go play in the mud.
I think you're muted.
Melissa, we can't hear you. Try again.
Yep, muted because my cat was down here rubbing on boxes. This is like nice when you want to go dig in the dirt, pull up your own stuff, which is one thing that they do talk about in this one, that like growing your own herbs has a little bit more of an impact positively on your outcome than buying it somewhere. But there's nothing wrong with buying it if you can't grow them yourself. But I think we're gonna wrap up because we're already over an hour. So that went quick because I know we all had at least one more.
We'll
have to do part 2.
And they appear. I pulled a Beetlejuice. Hi, Julie. I saw your comments. That was Alex that was just speaking and can sell you a dictionary. So just wanted to say hi real quick.
Yeah. So, well, thank you everybody for watching. I think we'll do a part 2. I think some of us were talking about maybe if we can do this at least once a month with some new stuff. And sometimes we even go find some oldies but goodies, maybe that kind of fallen out of the stream of like, they need the recognition. They deserve that recognition. So on top of all the new ones that come out.
I would love to do that because I still have the very first like pagan witchy book I bought in my little hole in the wall town. It didn't have a dust jacket on it. It was a hardcover. I was looking for anything witchy and I opened it and saw the word pagan and went, well, I have to quickly.
Maybe one day we'll have to do we can all like feature our collections. I just keep sitting here looking at like the bookcases that are like double stacked and lined on top. And I'm like, I wouldn't even have to buy any books for a while, And I'm like, and when was the last time I cracked that one open? So maybe we'll have to do like personal tours. If you felt safe showing, like this is what I have sitting around.
What's on your witchy shelf?
Oh, right. That's a next TikTok coming.
Oh boy.
But no, we should definitely do a part 2 because this was there were at least a book that all of you mentioned that I'm like, I would read that. Man, I should be writing that down. Like I don't know how we're gonna distribute it, but we should find a way to collect all the titles. And
well, that's what I was thinking too, Alexa. We should like put it in the comments or something like titles, because like I'm really drawn to the one that you just reviewed, the Crooked Path. Oh yeah, see, because with the Celtic connection and
that would be perfect for you. It would be such an interesting like cross section for somebody who's on a Celtic path.
Right. So, and I love this because we all have our different interests, and I think so many people out there, like they're no matter where you are on the path, because we're all at different levels and different, But yeah, this was fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was. Well, and a fun thing, this is going to get edited down. All of the little blips here and there get edited down and should hopefully go up as a podcast episode too. So titles and everything will be thrown up in there. So if you are a podcast fan, catch it there on Boxed Wine and Witchcraft.
And you can get these books at Goddess Elite. So goddesselite.com.
Mm-hmm.
You've been getting so many good books into recently. Like, I feel like the last 8 times I've walked into that shop, I've bought a book.
Yeah.
Because you keep getting good titles.
It's like there's certain colleagues that are like the tarot, which sends me down rabbit holes sometimes trying to find certain decks for everybody. But I like some of the artwork too. But then the book nerd in me, like I'm looking at some of the releases, following what the publishers are playing with and getting the advanced like booklets coming out. Like, here's what we anticipate releasing and circling half of the booklet. And,
it's like Scholastic Fair from like elementary school.
Kind of that, like the Scholastic Fair. Yeah. I'm like, oh, books. When am I going to have time to read them again? Hence these bookshelves that are like double in front of one and on top. So
same. Glad I'm not the only one.
No. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And we'll do it again. I'm sure we're all book lovers. We'll do it again.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.